With New Year's resolutions, many of us will make a vow to eat healthier, and that's a good thing. But what about our beloved pets and their nutrition? Greetings, Naturopathic Dr. Dennis Black here, and I'm on a mission to provide better nutrition for cats and dogs because truthfully, all pet food is dead food, which is why we created Rough Greens and Meow Greens in the first place. We bring their food back to life with live vitamins, minerals, probiotics, enzymes, omega oils, antioxidants, and so much more. All in a tasty formula that your dog and cat will love. You can improve your pet's coat, digestion, energy, and have less vet bills. Let 2025 bring a new year and a new pet. Get a Jumpstart trial bag, normally $20. Get a 100% discount with promo code BESTFRIEND. You just cover the shipping. Go to roughgreens.com, use promo code BESTFRIEND. Bring your pet's food back to life with Rough Greens. So good, your pet will ask for it by name.
This message comes from Greenlight. Ready to start talking to your kids about financial literacy? Meet Greenlight, the debit card and money app that teaches kids and teens how to earn, save, spend wisely, and invest with your guardrails in place. With Greenlight, you can send money to kids quickly, set up chores, automate allowance, and keep an eye on your kids' spending with real-time notifications. Join millions of parents and kids building healthy financial habits together on Greenlight. Get started risk-free at greenlight.com/audio.
It's the Opperman Report. And now, here is investigator Ed Opperman.
Okay, welcome to the Opperman Report. I'm your host, Private Investigator Ed Opperman. You can find me at Opperman Investigations and Digital Forensic Consulting at my website, emailrevealer.com. You can go there and get an autographed copy of my book, How to Become a Successful Private Investigator. Also, too, if you like today's show, check out the free archives at Spreaker.com. Or you can go to our website, OppermanReport.com, and see our members section, where we have additional content, additional shows that you can't find anywhere on YouTube or anything like that for free. We have today, our guest is from the Missing and Murdered Indigenous Women, Washington. Her name is Earth Feather Sovereign. She's a leader in this movement. And we're going to be talking about the missing and murdered Indigenous women. Again, we've covered this story several times in the past. You want to check out those shows at Spreaker.com. Miss Earth Feather Sovereign, are you there?
Yes, good afternoon.
Thank you so much. Can you tell us about yourself? Who is Earth Feather Sovereign?
Yes, my name is Earth Feather Sovereign. I'm a member of the Colville Confederated Tribes, located here in Washington State.
And what is it?
I've been an advocate with missing and murdered Indigenous women in Washington. I'm also the founder. I have been talking about this issue for a couple of years now, but the movement of missing and murdered Indigenous women began, years prior. When I heard about our missing and murdered Indigenous women and girls, it was with our First Nation sisters in Canada during the I Don't Know More movement. And also teachings from my mother. My mother was a social worker, and she used to explain to me some of the circumstances that go on with, domestic violence and sexual assault with our women, as well as the environmental compacts that come about with our women on reservations when people bring in man camps that are associated with the pipelines.
Oh, okay. No one's ever mentioned that to me before. Okay, what is that, these man camps that come in?
Well, just above us in British Columbia, Kinder Morgan, they're trying to place man camps throughout British Columbia. They're expecting over 1,000 men and over hundreds of man camps. And some people may be familiar with the movie Wind River. Wind River came out probably about a couple of years ago. Or they were talking about a Native American woman who was murdered along with her boyfriend at a man camp. And in that movie, Wind River, at the end of the movie, they told people that there's no comprehensive database to collect all the missing and murdered Indigenous women here in the United States. We've heard, similar issues with the Canadian government and the missing and murdered Indigenous women and girls there. And so with these man camps, like Kinder Morgan, they would hire, all these single men. And a lot of them will seek out, our Indigenous women, near, a lot of these man camps are near, reservations. And there's a lot of trafficking going on, and then a lot of sisters being stolen and trafficked through these man camps. And sometimes we find them murdered. It doesn't only happen to the women, but also children.
See, that makes sense, because here you have these out-of-town workers coming in, and they're from all over the country, I could imagine, right? And they bring them in, and they feel anonymous. They're amongst a bunch of strangers. They're working in these remote camps, like you said. They feel anonymous, and they're more likely to get. They start establishing their own rules and their own morals in these kind of outposts and these kind of camps, like you said. And so I could see that developing, especially if there's no supervision, and there's no leadership there that's setting a tone of what's acceptable and what's not acceptable. Am I onto something?
Yes, that's correct. The reason why we should be concerned here in Washington State and also the United States is because, it appears that sex trafficking has come up to an all-time high. I mean, this doesn't only affect our Indigenous women. It affects, all people of all races. And here in the United States, we have I-5 that goes all the way down from California, all the way up to the Canadian border. And we have a lot of cartels, Mexican cartels, and a lot of, other gangs as well that are targeting our Indigenous people. A lot of it has to do with a law that was passed in 1978, where it's really hard. The elephant versus Squamish.
With New Year's resolutions, many of us will make a vow to eat healthier, and that's a good thing. But what about our beloved pets and their nutrition? Greetings, naturopathic Dr. Dennis Black here, and I'm on a mission to provide better nutrition for cats and dogs because, truthfully, all pet food is dead food, which is why we created Rough Greens and Meow Greens in the first place. We bring their food back to life with live vitamins, minerals, probiotics, enzymes, omega oils, antioxidants, and so much more. All in a tasty formula that your dog and cat will love. You can improve your pet's coat, digestion, energy, and have less vet bills. Let 2025 bring a new year and a new pet. Get a Jumpstart trial bag, normally $20. Get a 100% discount with promo code BESTFRIEND. You just cover the shipping. Go to roughgreens.com, use promo code BESTFRIEND. Bring your pet's food back to life with Rough Greens. So good, your pet will ask for it by name.
Really hard for us to prosecute non-tribal people on tribal lands. And so, a lot of our people are left vulnerable on reservations. We have a public law 280 where the state is able to come in and help arrest people. And there's also the Bureau of Indian Affairs that are supposed to assist us as well. But there's just not enough funding, and there's not enough, people employed to help tackle this issue because it's large. It's really big.
So what you're saying is that The tribal police aren't allowed to go off of tribal land and investigate crimes and make arrests.
Yes, it has to do with a lot of jurisdictional issues as well. And there's not enough communication between tribal, state, county, and like the BIA, law enforcement.
Now, why do you think that is? Is that due to corruption?
I just believe there's not enough resources and there's not enough people that are employed to help tackle the issue. Mm-hmm. So here in Washington State, I've been working with Gina Mossbrooker from the 14th District, and we've been working on legislation. In 2018, we passed HB 2951, which is a bill for missing murdered Indigenous women to help begin the steps of possibly coming up with a database here in Washington State. And it also directed the State Patrol to talk with some of the urban Indian organizations and also talk with some of the tribe to see, what's going on, what's the missing link. And they just came up with their report this past year. But again, we didn't want to wait for a year for the State Patrol to come up with their report. So we put forth another bill, HB 1713, which created 2 liaisons to work with the State Patrol on the east and the west side of Washington State to come up with protocols for law enforcement for when they do take a police report, what steps they need to follow, because they need to contact so many different, jurisdictions. And these liaisons will also help, work with the families, because a lot of them are left in the dark and they don't know what's going on. And so I'm hoping that, these are the first steps of a database and also a task force to help tackle the issues of our missing and murdered Indigenous women, but not just our Indigenous women. These steps will help all people, because last year there were over 9,000 missing children in Washington State.
What is the entire population of Washington State? It can't be that populous.
I'm sorry, what was the question?
Yeah, you said if there's 9,000 missing children, what is the entire population of the state of Washington? It can't be, the population can't be that large.
I'm not sure what the population here is in Washington State, but I do know that, the Native American population, we only make up 2% of that population. And a report that was released by the State Patrol suggested that there were 56, missing women. And a report from the Urban Indian Health Institute reported that the number's more like 80. That number may seem small, but because of our population, our Native American population, it's so small that the numbers are actually a lot higher.
When I had Charles Upman on the show, who was the father of Misty Upman, who was raped at the Golden Globes, and I had him come on the show to talk about that case. But he told me the whole tragic story of Misty's entire life and how she was raped as a child on the reservation, and that the tribal police, I think she was raped at a rec center by a bunch of boys at the rec center, and the tribal police just kind of brushed it off as boys will be boys. Is that a common story you've heard?
Yes, it's a very common story. I grew up part of my life on our Colville Indian Reservation, and it's like the second largest reservation here in Washington State. And our population makes up about 9,000 people. And half of my life, I also grew up in Portland, Oregon. And I myself was sexually abused as a child and raped as a teenager, not only on the reservation, but also in Portland, Oregon. And when I reported the rape that happened to me in the cities, they didn't take the case seriously. All he had to say is that, yes, it was consensual. It was consensual when it wasn't consensual. And they let him go. And so we hear that so often that, women, they don't feel like they matter and they don't want to make the report. And also when I was 14, I was also stolen by a gang in Portland, Oregon, where their intentions were to take me to Hawaii and traffic me.
With New Year's resolutions, many of us will make a vow to eat healthier, and that's a good thing. But what about our beloved pets and their nutrition? Greetings, Naturopathic Dr. Dennis Black here, and I'm on a mission to provide better nutrition for cats and dogs because truthfully, all pet food is dead food, which is why we created Rough Greens and Meow Greens in the first place. We bring their food back to life with live vitamins, minerals, probiotics, enzymes, omega oils, antioxidants, and so much more. All in a tasty formula that your dog and cat will love. You can improve your pet's coat, digestion, energy, and have less vet bills. Let 2025 bring a new year and a new pet. Get a Jumpstart trial bag, normally $20. Get a 100% discount with promo code BESTFRIEND. You discover the shipping. Go to roughgreens.com, use promo code BESTFRIEND. Bring your pet's food back to life with Rough Greens. So good, your pet will ask for it by name.
And I heard them say that they were able to make about $2,000 off me per day. And if it wasn't for our family members, not the police, because my mother did make a report to the police that I was missing. And they told her that it wasn't 48 hours yet, that she couldn't make her report yet. So my mom didn't want to make 48 hours. And as we know that, 48 hours is like the most crucial, moments to find somebody. And so, she talked to my friends and some of the community, and they were able to track down who I was with. And they told them that they needed to bring me back or, they were going to find me. And
yeah, there's actually
I'm lucky that they listened and I was brought back.
Yeah, there's actually a whole TV show called The First 48 Hours. So it's not like a secret that the first 48 hours are most important. You'd think that they would make a change to that policy. Now, when you were 14 years old and you were abducted by this gang, were these people that you knew that you were associating with, or were they strangers?
They were people that my friend knew.
And
as I look back on it, as far as I know, that my supposed friend might have been setting me up for them to take me, because maybe she was being trafficked.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you hear that too. That's very common too, that they'll use other young women that are victims to lure in other victims, because the people will be more trusting of another young woman. Now, you mentioned another case too, where you were raped or assaulted, and in that case, was an actual arrest made, or did the guy just deny it even before an arrest was made?
Well, I called the police and I let them know what he did, and I also let them know that he punched me. And so they arrested him for the physical assault, and they said that they couldn't hold him for the sexual assault. And so what happened that evening, it was actually in Spokane, Washington, is that I was with this person that I knew as a young girl on a reservation, and we went out for a few drinks, and I said something to him that he didn't like, so he punched me. And then so I was upset, and I ran, and I went to the gas station, and I seen this police officer there. And this police officer, instead of her going back to arrest him, she offered me a ride home. And so I was so upset. I was just, okay, fine, I'll just go home. And but I let him drive my car earlier that day, and so he had my house keys.
Oh my God.
So he went back to my place and he raped me. And then, myself, I was scared. I didn't want him to hit me and beat me up anymore, So it's like I froze. And because I didn't holler and scream and the neighbors didn't hear anything, it's like the police didn't believe me. And so they arrested him from him punching me because there was a mark on my face. And I even went to the hospital and did a rape kit. And to this day, I still don't know if my rape kit was processed. And that's another problem here in Washington State, is that, there's a backlog of rape kits that are just sitting there and not being processed while these perpetrators are going around, victim after victim. And if they process these rape kits, they might find serial rapists out there.
That's true. That would substantiate. That would bolster the evidence against them, you'd think, if they took the time to investigate this. Now, what year did this happen in Spokane, Washington? This incident?
This happened in 2009, so not too long ago. But unfortunately, the person that raped me, he passed away not too long ago from a car accident. So I wasn't able to get, justice through the courts. But, he's going to have to come, before, God and answer for what he has done.
Now, that incident with Spokane, was this tribal police or the regular police?
This was the regular police.
And it was a female police officer?
Yes.
Did you save her name?
No, kind of put it in the back of my head. But the person that was there making the arrest was a man. And this man had kind of a bias about me because probably about 2 years prior, I was in a domestic violence relationship with my husband. And my husband called the police on me when actually he was the perpetrator. And so this police officer, he already had a negative outlook on the kind of person I was. But I was able to get those charges dropped because, they figured out, well, I was actually in an abusive relationship. And today I have a lifetime protection order against my ex-husband because that's how abusive he was. It took him almost killing me as well through strangulation that, I left him. And when we deal with women with domestic violence, on average, it takes them 11 times to leave their abuser for them to finally say enough is enough.
The incident when you were 14 in Portland. Now, did you ever go to the police on that incident at all?
No, I didn't. I was scared.
Okay. All right. So that one wasn't even reported to the police.
No.
Now,
I felt a lot of shame during that situation because, my mother, she taught me, you don't go out and drink, and you don't go around people that do drugs. And that's what I did. And so There was a lot of guilt on my part, and I felt like I put myself in that situation when, I was only 14. And, something like that should not have happened to a 14-year-old, especially, here in Washington State. That's not even the age of consent.
Mm. So the perpetrators in that case, they're still walking around and probably doing the same thing then now, right? To this day.
Yes, possibly.
Do you think that one of the reasons that your family was hesitant to go to the police and solve it on their own was because of the institutional racism?
Yes, I believe a lot of it has to do with institutional racism. There's a lot of stereotypes where, Native Americans are drunks, and, there's a lot of stereotypes about our Native American women that were, promiscuous, because I think a lot of it has to do with, like it's the Halloween season now.
Right.
And there's a lot of non-tribal, women going around with these Pocahontas costumes, and, organizations like, businesses like Party City, they're still selling these costumes, and the Party City's not selling them. You're able to find them at these secondhand stores, and just, depictions like that. It's almost like, people running around, with their face colored as black, trying to be a slave for a Halloween or something. It's just as bad as that. It's, one race kind of say that they're similar are more powerful than another race by trying to belittle them. And it's not okay.
That's interesting too, because if you notice, usually when you'll have a woman dressed up as the Indian, quote unquote, the man will be dressed up as a cowboy, just look at, he doesn't dress up like a quote unquote Indian, like the male Indian in the relationship there. No, he's the white cowboy, and she's the hot Indian, the outfit. Just fascinating how these things are ingrained into our culture and our mind and our thinking. And until just now, I never even made that connection. I just never considered, it's just cowboys and Indians. Yeah,
Yes, and a lot has to do with our educational system as well. Our women have been becoming raped and murdered since time immemorial. And we bring it back to, the doctrine of discovery and Christopher Columbus. Mm. And Christopher Columbus, he was one of the first sex traffickers here in the Americas, because he came here looking for gold. And here he found that our people are so beautiful, so generous, so willing to help others. And he took advantage of that and thought that our people were worth our weight in gold. Mm. So a lot of our women and children were raped and, sent overseas to become slaves. And those who weren't able to slave, he murdered them. And he pretty much annihilated that whole tribe that he was in contact with. And this set foot for the doctrine of discovery, where, the Spanish were able to subjugate any country where they weren't, Christians. And they were able to take that country and take their land and enslave the people and rape them, kill them.
Yeah, I was also struck. I think it was Karina Equipez went on the show. We were talking about the family separation going on at the border. Asylum seekers come here, and we separate the children from the family and put them in cages. And she pointed out that's been the policy of separating indigenous families from the very start, to separate them from their children. This is a tried and true practice going back 400 years. It's nothing new.
Yes. Here in the United States, we had boarding schools. In about 1879, the Carlisle boarding school began, and where they thought it was easier to educate, well, I would say not easier, but it was less expensive to educate the children of, their European standards rather than murder the people. And the idea was to, kill the Indian and save the man.
Mm.
And, this also implemented some other laws in other states where they even put bounties on our indigenous people. And some of the children as well, they weren't able to learn, any of their culture anymore. They had to stay away from their families, and they ripped them of their language and their traditions. And if the children even tried to do anything traditional or culturally, they were abused physically and sexually. And even just a few years ago, there's a boarding school called Chemawa Boarding School located in Oregon, and they found a number of unmarked graves of children who used to go to boarding school.
Yeah, that seems to be a pattern, too, as well, with these boarding schools and these schools for juvenile, I guess we used to call them juvenile delinquents, but kids are caught up in the system. And even orphans, too. We did a whole show about the White House boys down there in Florida. Graves found, the medical experiments done on these kids. And we're here with Earth Feather Sovereign. She's you can find her on Facebook, Missing and Murdered Indigenous Women of Washington. Keep an eye out, too. There's going to be a march in Vancouver, British Columbia on February 14th about this issue. And there's also a candlelight vigil that you can find in Seattle right around that same time. Earth Feather, off the air, we were talking about how if there's an arrest on the reservation, those are federal charges. Explain that to us.
Well, yes, the reservation, that's federal land. So say somebody stole a candy bar on the reservation at a store, and they were Native American, they would most likely be arrested for federal charges rather than a misdemeanor. But say they just went across the river where it was state land and they stole that same candy bar, or they would probably either get a slap on the hand or a misdemeanor charge. But say a non-tribal person went on the reservation and stole that same candy bar, they probably wouldn't face any charges. They probably wouldn't even have to go to court because of the jurisdictional issues. And there's a high rate of our Native American people in federal prisons, even a higher number than, Caucasian or African American.
Now, that's a nightmare scenario that you just described, that any charge on a reservation, because it's a federal reservation, like you said, any crime there is going to be a federal crime. Now, no, there has to be some way to go back and create some kind of an amendment to this to resolve this huge discrepancy that's totally unjust. Is there anybody working on that?
I do believe that some of the people that may be running for president this year, okay. I think it was Elizabeth Warren, she said that she wanted to try to work on the Oliphant versus Suquamish law that happened, or act that happened in 1978. And hopefully something will be done with that, as well as, the federal guidelines of arresting tribal members on reservation lands and them going into federal prison.
And what you say about vice versa is absolutely true, because over here in Nevada, again, the Tonopah Reservation, if you drive through the Tonopah Reservation to get to Mount Charleston or to get to those, the Valley of Fire to buy those fireworks up there, if you get a ticket over there by the tribal police, you just ignore it. You don't have to pay it. There's no way there's no enforcement, and you could drive like a lunatic around there, drive drunk, get pulled over, no consequences, Hey.
And another act that's kind of been sitting on the desk is the Violence Against Women's Act. Trump, he didn't want to renew it this year, but, we have a few congresswomen who are Native American who are really strongly pushing for them to renew it. And with the Violence Against Women's Act, it has put a lot of protections for our Native American women on reservations, where if they're in an intimate partner relationship, that if they're being abused by a non-tribal member, that actually the tribal people are able to arrest them and, put charges. But out of the 562 tribes, there's only maybe 20 tribes that have adopted the Violence Against Women's Act. And again, this only goes for married couples or people who have been in a relationship for a really long time. This doesn't go for strangers. Like if a stranger was to attack a woman or rape her on reservations. And this is where a lot of the missing links are happening.
Right. Do you think some of these issues, because in certain areas, the tribes have come up with endeavors like the gambling and the cigarettes and tobacco sales and the fireworks sales. They seem to be able to solve, and maneuver their way through those laws and those issues successfully. Why is it that these other issues, which everyone should be in support of, can't be resolved? Is it corruption?
Again, it probably comes back to, racism. And maybe, the government, they're still after, even reservation land. Mm-hmm. Because, when they put Native Americans on reservations back in the day, they try to put us on pieces of the land where they thought, they didn't have any use of. But now they're discovering that there's a lot of minerals under these lands, and the government's really having a hard time extracting some of these minerals because they're on sacred lands. And even when they come in to extract them, our people are left vulnerable from, like I said, these man camps. Some of these man camps are not only seen in trailers, but they could be, in low-cost hotel rooms. And so there's all these things that leave our people vulnerable. And sorry, I lost my train of thought.
No, that's okay. Also, too, we didn't talk about this off the air, but everyone knows about Black Lives Matter and the higher percentage of African Americans getting unarmed men with no charges. We just took on the case here of Byron Williams. My attorney just took on this case to represent his family in his death in police custody. No charge, but that he was riding a bicycle without a headlight. Is what he came into contact with police. But Native American men, unarmed men, no charges, indigenous men have a way higher rate of death by police than even African American men. Is this true?
Yes, Native Americans, we do have a higher rate for police brutality. And here in Washington State, last year we passed a de-escalate bill. One of had to do with a Puyallup Nation tribal member. Her name was Jacqueline Sailors. She was murdered by a Tacoma police officer, and she was 2 months pregnant. And the police were actually after her partner at that time. And her partner, she was on the driver's side and he was on the passenger. And the partner forced her to try to take off in the car. And at that time, the police, all the police that were surrounding them, shot at them. And unfortunately, she died.
Now, with this higher percent...
And so,
okay.
Yeah, and so her parents, along with the Puyallup Nation and some other people who also faced police brutality, that we came up with a de-escalate bill, which passed, which would, have the police come up with measures where they don't always have to bring out their gun and shoot somebody. They could, use other measures to help de-escalate the situation.
Yeah, I would invite the audience to go back and listen to the shows I did with Norm Stamper, who, by the way, is from Seattle, who is the former Seattle police chief, and we went into in depth about this whole situation. This concept we have in this country that every problem we have, that we have to dial and call the cops and call these armed guys to come and resolve every issue we have in life, is just the craziest. Even a dispute with your landlord or a hotel manager, every little argument you have with or a Burger King drive-through now, people call them. It's just insane. This concept that we're calling armed men to respond to every kind of a personal issue. When there was a time, not just in this country, but in cultures around the world, where the elders of the community would handle these kind of civil disputes with no issues, no violence, no incarceration, no pulling of guns. No tasers, no mace, just through talking. And there's no reason why you'd think we'd be more civilized now than we were back. Anyway, this issue, again, with the indigenous men being taken out by police at a higher rate, is this also by tribal police, or is this always by the regular police?
It's usually by non-tribal police. Like here in Washington State, about 78% of our population live off reservation.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
When we only make up 2% of the population, and that's why the numbers are so high.
So now, when we have these issues with the police, like I have issues with the police, I'm a fear for my life every time I come in. I advise all my clients, do not call the police for any reason. Even if you're being kidnapped, first thing I got to do is run you for warrants. Any contact with the police is the last thing you want to do is have any kind of contact with the police. If you have a similar name to a guy with a warrant, you got a problem. You're going to be spending the night in jail. But now, do you have issues on tribal land? Are the tribal police as bad as the regular police I have to deal with?
Well, I would say maybe in the 90s.
Okay.
The police were a little bit off, but they're getting better training, and they're able to de-escalate situations. With the tribal police, a lot of the people being hired in the tribal law enforcement are usually tribal members, and they usually have better relationships with the community, mm-hmm. and even maybe the majority of the community could be their relatives. So they're able to handle the situations where they're able to, go to grandmas to handle a rebellious youth.
Yeah, we should put the grandmas in charge, right? We should put the grandmas in charge of most of our problems.
Right.
We would have so many, especially my grandmas, I forget it. But now I lost my train of thought too, myself. But right. I was going to say, too, that's another issue here, because here where I live in Henderson, Nevada, the police do not socialize with the civilian population. Okay, whether it's white, black, or whatever. The cops stay amongst themselves, and they do not socialize with the regular civilians. And that's why I think that's one of the main reasons why you have so many issues. Just to leave us off here, we only got about 5 minutes left. You wanted to say some things about ICE and the problems with ICE and detention centers?
Yes, well, a lot of people don't realize that, the Mexican people are indigenous people. We're all relatives here in Canada, Mexico, and the United States. And some of the reasons why our people go missing and murdered too is because the Child Protective Services. And I believe what they did with the Native Americans of taking our children through the CPS and not following the Indian Child Welfare Act is a lot of the things that they're doing to the immigrants and the Mexican population by taking their children and using it as like a cash cow. And some of these immigrant children, last year, 2,000 of them went missing. And still today, we don't know where those children went. So it makes me wonder what's really going on.
Yeah, we had Mark Lane on, who was a part of an organization trying to aid these asylum seekers down there, actually taking them into his own home, leaving his house in the middle of the night, and to reunite these people with their families here in the United States. They have families. They have families they could send their kids to. If they're going to arrest an adult, they have places, relatives they could send their kids to. But none of this is all being ignored by the ICE and Border Patrol. But Mark Lane has evidence of children being molested in these detention centers by the officers there and the staff in these detention centers. It's not rumor. It's not Indian. It's paperwork from the detention center saying, yes, your child was molested on our property. And still to this day, people trying to spin that around. Ms. Earth Feather Sovereign, we're out of time. What do you want to leave us with in the next minute? People are going to hold you. And I know you wanted to tell us about some music that you've produced that we're going to try and make available to the public as well.
Well, I like to leave with people that, our indigenous population, we have the highest statistics of all the populations. We face, the highest police brutality, the highest domestic violence, sexual assault, and missing women. If we're able to tackle the issues that are going on in our communities, even with healthcare, there will be better healthcare for everybody. Mm-hmm. Everybody will be safe. We'll be able to find the missing, and there wouldn't be that many people being sexually assaulted, or there'll be healthier relationships in the families because we will lower the numbers of domestic violence. So once people see that our issues are important and they help uplift us, it will help uplift the nation.
And you can find Earth Feather Sovereign on Facebook, Missing and Murdered Indigenous Women, Washington. Keep an eye out for the march in Vancouver, February 14th, Vancouver, British Columbia, and also to a candlelight vigil in Seattle around that same time. Earth Feather Sovereign, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Okay, so thank you so much, Earth Feather Sovereign. You want to check out, too, we're going to be inserting these songs that she was telling us about. One is a canoe journey song written by Antoine. I wrote the last name. I can't read it now. Sorry about that. And another one is Sister Round Dance by Nikki Shoshana. A couple of Native American songs that we'd like to share with the audience you can check out. Once again, thank you so much, Earth Feather Sovereign. If you have an interest in these kind of topics with these missing and murdered Indigenous women, we did another show with Morning Star Gali, Gali, discussing the same topic. You can find it at Spreaker, SPREAKER.com. Just put in Spreaker, Opperman, Morning Star Gali, or Missing and Murdered Indigenous Women, it'll come up. We've done several shows with Karina Acre Paez, who's a real friend of the show. She brought us the guests too about the California State Bank, the public bank. It's a law just passed by Gavin Newsom, thanks in part to our audience here contacting the legislature there in California and demanding that they approve this vote. Man, that's really good work, guys. We've done self-shows about ICE, another one with Mark Lane about the detention centers and children being raped at the detention center. And also to the story of Misty Upham, who was raped we believe, by Harvey Weinstein at the Golden Globes, in the men's room at the Golden Globe Awards. There's no doubt, no one denies, no one questions that this woman was raped at the Golden Globe Awards. You see people standing up talking about Me Too movement from the stage of the Golden Globes, or meanwhile, feet away in the men's room, this young woman was raped and then failed by our society and our system in every possible way. So you can look up Misty Upham, the story of Charles Upham, Spreaker.com, Opperman. You Google that and it'll come right up. You'll find it. A tragic story, but this woman failed by our society.